Adelaide is fortunate in that it has a long coastal strip with beautiful, safe, sandy beaches. And nothing says Adelaide beachside location more than the jetties that can be found at its suburban beaches. These jetties were originally built in a time of sailing ships and were working jetties. They're now purely recreational. The furthest north is the Largs Bay Jetty. It was built in 1882 and it's now just a third of its original length as a storm badly damaged it in 1953, and when it was repaired it was shortened to its current length. It was built to provide harbour facilities for overseas passenger ships. The hotel at the end of the jetty provided many passengers with accommodation for their first night in Adelaide. The hotel is an icon. It's still operating. It has a restaurant and bars and still provides accommodation. But its main claim to fame is that during the 1970s it was where the golden era of Australian rock bands played. Sadly, I'm too young to have seen any of them. The hotel apparently is also where the drive-through bottle shop was invented. Alcohol is not sold in supermarkets in Australia, only in licensed premises. Only Australians in the early 1950s could come up with the idea of driving into a building next to a pub and be able to quickly buy your alcohol and take it with you. The lane to the left is for a quick sale, the right-hand lane you can stop and browse. Going south, the next jetty is the Semaphore Jetty. Semaphore was the location of the Customs House and the jetty was built in 1860 to provide berths for the pilot and the quarantine launches. Semaphore has the Time Ball Tower, which has been restored and it still works. It was built in 1875 for ships to set their chronometers, which they used for navigation. The ball was manually hoisted at 5 minutes to 1 p.m. and then dropped at 1 p.m. This was filmed later in the afternoon, so the ball is at the bottom. After it was restored in the early 1990s, the mechanism that raises the ball is mechanical. The suburb of Semaphore was a bustling area for the workers of the nearby Port Adelaide. The main street of Semaphore has pubs, restaurants and an assortment of shops and even a cinema. The Palais is a beautiful old beachside building opened in 1922. Its main claim to fame was that it had been a dance hall, and I've read so many lovely accounts of people going to dances there. It's been restored, it has a bistro and function room. The ballroom is now a restaurant. The Grange Jetty is next. Grange is very much a residential area and much quieter than Semaphore. It has these beautiful Victorian-era terraced houses. There's 8. The original plan was to build 24, but the company that built them in 1884 suffered a downturn and went bankrupt. The next jetty south is the Henley Beach Jetty. Now, as Henley Beach is a very popular area, parking is a challenge, so I decided to walk along the coastal path to Henley Square. It's not that far, and it's a nice walk looking at the homes along the way. Henley Square has a variety of cafes and restaurants, and there are 2 very popular pubs. There are stairs on the jetty for people to climb out of the water and back onto the jetty. Some are fun for young people as jetty jumping. The Henley Jetty also each January hosts the Greek Orthodox Blessing of the Fleet, where a cross is thrown into the water and then a swimmer has to swim and grab it. South from Henley Beach is perhaps Adelaide's best known suburban beach, Glenelg, the first palindrome all Adelaide schoolchildren learn, spelt the same way as backwards and forwards. Glenelg is the only location on the suburban coastline where you can find anything resembling high-rise apartments, although there are height limits. There's a water park, an amusement arcade and a street full of restaurants and shops. The Ferris wheel was only there for the summer. It was a radio station promotion. Glenelg has a memorial to the arrival of the first Europeans who waded ashore on December 27, 1836. A tram still runs to Glenelg, and so that's part of the fun day out for children. From Glenelg, it was time to stretch my legs again, and I walked down to the Brighton Jetty. Yes, Adelaide has a Brighton too. This is a longer walk with some interesting street sculpture along the way. Going south from Glenelg, you can easily see the coastline curve to form the Fleurieu Peninsula. The Brighton Jetty looks newish, and that's because it had been badly damaged in a storm in 1994 and then repaired. A mobile phone company paid for the repairs so it could put its mast and antenna on the end of the jetty. The final suburban jetty is the Port Noarlunga Jetty. This jetty is so far south that up until the 1960s it was a holiday location for people coming down from Adelaide. It's now just part of suburbia. It's a particularly long jetty as it goes to the Noarlunga Reef, which can be seen here as the tide was out. There are steps leading into the water. The reef is a popular snorkeling and scuba diving destination. The jetty was built in 1855 to help the flour mill at what is now Old Noarlunga, so ships would come and load up from the jetty. The original jetty was destroyed in a storm, a common theme along the coastline, and then this version was built in 1921, so looking good for a 100-year-old jetty. Jetties are a really iconic part of an Australian lifestyle. On hot days they provide shade underneath them. Just get there early. People fish from them, they jump off them, and then there's me, who's more of a let's go for a stroll with an ice cream kind of jetty aficionado. Adelaide's suburban beaches are a wonderful part of our big wide world to explore. If you like my videos, please consider liking and subscribing.